Hello, and welcome to Winey Mom Podcast, a judgment-free zone where moms can be real with each other, where we can share our struggles and laugh at the ridiculous moments we find ourselves in every day. I'm B.
And I'm Jay.
Hi. And tonight, Jay, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a White Claw Surge.
Nice.
And they have newly come out
Classic.
with the pineapple flavor.
I do like pineapple.
And it's so good. So I am excited about this one.
I am drinking a random Chardonnay that my husband bought at the grocery store. I don't know what it is. He just brought me a glass. It's kind of bitter, so it's probably cheap, which is fine with me. It's my kind of Chardonnay.
Yum.
It's pretty better. All right. So, getting started. Today, we're going to be talking about being accepted in mom culture in general and being socially isolated in motherhood and how hard it is sometimes to connect with their moms.
Right.
I mean, we've all been there. Like, you're out with your kids. Your kid starts pitching a fit, throwing a tantrum, and you feel like all eyes are on you. You know you've heard other people saying things, judging you. You're a bad mom because your kid's having a freaking tantrum. But the truth is, we can't control our children's emotions. Children have emotions. They are their own independent beings. Sometimes those emotions are very big, and some kids have bigger emotions than others.
Yeah, every kid is different. Every kid has a different personality. You know, just because one kid is more temperamental or hyperactive than the other, you know, it doesn't define the ability for us to be parents.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's not on you, like you did something wrong because your child.
Right.
I feel like that's how we're made to feel.
Yeah. We're not a good or bad parent. And I feel like so often we see that portrayed, that because your child is quiet, your child is calm, or because they're
you have a good
baby. Yeah. It means you're doing something different than the other parent, or that you're doing something wrong, when more likely it has to do with that child's personality, right? Or their personality traits. Exactly.
I happen to come from a high-strung family. My children are also high-strung, and we have flash tempers, but then they can rein it back in. But yeah, they're very emotional. Especially two of my kids are much more emotional than the third one. Edmund and Guinevere tend to be more emotional.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of time they're generational traits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something that we pass on along to our children.
Have you ever heard your child literally mimic back to you your own behavior, and you're just like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh my God. When I get upset about something and people are like telling me to do something and I feel like it's pointless, I just go, why does it matter? And then my kids started saying to me, Mom, why does it matter? And I'm like, oh, you heard me say that. Like, that's not coming from you. You heard me say that. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it doesn't. Whenever my kids say that back to me, I start to think, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of something than I need to.
Right.
Gotta get your own words thrown back at you. It kind of hurts a little. It hits differently.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've seen it a lot with my 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like her personality traits compared to my other 2 girls, like she's a lot more hard-headed, a lot more like emotional, like big emotions. When she was a baby, she would like freak out and like bite at her hand when she was really mad. She grew out of that, and then at one point,
go Titan.
Yeah, at one point she would hit her head like on the floor or like on whatever she could find, like the wall or whatever. If she didn't get what she wanted, like that was her way of. She didn't know how else to like express her feelings or her big emotions, so she would do that. And then I remember speaking to my my husband's mom, and she's like, yeah, her dad used to do the same thing. I'm like, oh, well, it all makes sense now. I'm
No,
not
like,
crazy. There's not something wrong with my child. It's just
no,
generational
it's her personality.
personality. Yeah.
Dante used to hit his head against the wall when he was like 12 months old, and Jim used to do the same thing too. Actually, I was talking to him about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of behavior where you feel like it might be a learned, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just the way they react. It's just
Right.
how it is. And I see with like my other two children, I can see myself. I remember when I was like 3 years old, how frustrated I would get, and I see it in them, and I can like understand and relate. Like my daughter has these crazy tantrums where she just completely loses control of herself. And I remember being that little 5-year-old kid. And I just like, I know I can't make it better, but I can understand where you're coming from.
Right. So you know how
I
to you can learn how to
Yeah.
react
It's
towards
not,
it a little better.
I don't have to shame her. It's like, it's okay to
Mhm.
have that emotion. You're just not old. Like now that I'm an adult, well, before I was an adult, even when I was a little child, you learn how to regulate it. But when you're 5, 6 years old,
You
they're
can't
just
control it.
learning. They're just
Yeah.
learning. And sometimes they can't. Some people have rage and emotions that they can't control. So
Mhm.
like, I don't know, everyone's different. And
Exactly. And that's what comes down to, like, every child has a different personality, and it doesn't define the job that we're doing as a parent,
it doesn't
you
make
know?
you a bad mom just because your kid loses their shit. Like they're a little kid. And I know you expressed to me that you had had a situation where someone made you feel like that with Addie.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of like a relatable situation because I feel like a lot of parents when they're traveling experience this kind of
Mhm.
thing, but it's one of those things where it's like stuck to me. Like
Yeah. Well, you
it was,
had a
it was
horrible travel situation, like in general, on that whole situation. Like it was
right.
all effed up. It was fucked up.
Yeah, so it was Christmas, and we were traveling to California, and
That
our
famous Christmas where Southwest canceled everyone's
yeah,
flights a couple years ago.
flights
Yeah.
yeah, flights were delayed tremendously. We ended up our flight out of our hometown got delayed, and we ended up missing our flight from Las Vegas to our final destination. So we ended up in Las Vegas, and we had to stay in the airport overnight uh, with 3
With 3
children.
kids.
And I think she was less than 12 months old. I don't think she was quite a year yet then.
Well, their birthdays and yeah, no, she wasn't even.
So
She's
she
like
was like
11 months old.
11 months. Yeah, she was 11 months old. You know, being a baby, she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't sleep all night. She was just not happy, you know. So finally, we were able to board a plane, and even that was delayed. I was supposed to board like at 6:30 or something in the morning. They couldn't find I don't think it was the pilot. They couldn't find um
It was like a flight attendant or
flight
something.
attendant. Yeah, that's right. A
Yeah.
flight attendant to assist in the crew. So we had to wait for the flight attendant to show up. And at the end, we didn't end up departing until like almost 8. So we get on the plane. Granted, none of us have slept all night. The girls slept a little bit, but they slept like on our
Like
like
in a chair at
jackets
the
and
airport.
no, like on the floor.
On the fucking floor. Yeah.
We laid down the blankets we had and like the sweaters we had, and they laid on the floor on the airport. They didn't offer us any shuttle service to like any hotels. We didn't have the baby car seats, so we couldn't
You couldn't go anywhere.
go anywhere. We are stuck there. But anyway, that's besides the story.
That's so
Uh, so we end up on the plane, and the baby's good for the majority of the part, but the last 30 minutes of the flight, she just completely loses it. She just starts crying, like at the top of her lungs, just screaming. And at this point, I don't know what to do. I mean, I've gave her a bottle, I've gave her snacks. Like there was nothing that I could do to comfort this child at this point. She was
she
just
just needed to
exhausted and
be
done.
home.
Yeah, she was done. And so the lady in front of us kept turning around looking at us like just like dirty looks, and then Eventually she turned around and said, "Something is wrong with your child." And I just looked at her like, "Lady, like we slept in the airport overnight. Like my daughter's exhausted. She's a baby. Like I don't know what you're expecting from me." And like that look in her eyes, like, "What are you doing wrong?" kind of look,
Mm-hmm.
like has stuck with me forever. Because I was just so embarrassed already. And for her to like point me out in front of like the whole entire flight, like I just felt terrible. I just felt so
Yeah.
humiliated because I felt like I was doing something wrong because I couldn't control my child. But in reality, my child was she's a baby. Like what do you expect after having a long night like that?
Like it
You
was like
know?
a 3-day issue too with your
It
flights
was.
coming to here and back from here. Like everything got fucked up. You were here for what, like 12 hours and you had to go back immediately.
Yeah.
Like that poor baby. She'd been through like 2 straight days of airports.
Yeah, so that's one thing that where I felt personally attacked as a mother.
It's
Like,
like so unacceptable for her to have said that to you. Like,
yeah, and I
fuck
mean,
that lady. What the fuck is wrong with her? Ugh, makes me
right,
so mad.
granted, the
I'm so
people
sorry.
around us like were like, "What the fuck, like, lady, are you for reals right now? Like, she's a baby. Like, have some understanding." Everyone was kind of like against her, and
She's
kind of just
literally
like
like
stood up for
a baby.
me.
She wasn't even a
But
toddler. She was like a baby. She was literally an infant.
yeah,
People. So judgmental. The next point I wanted to make, and that's not just like random randos, like random people, but also, and this might just be me, I do have a really hard time like connecting with other moms that I didn't know before I was a mom. Obviously, we and Jay have known each other since we were 8 years old. Like,
mhm.
full disclosure, we've been friends forever. This girl's my sister, um, essentially. Um, but I have a hard, I can't make friends now that I have kids because I feel like when I speak with another mom, I'm always worried I'm going to say something where she's going to be like, wow, that's a bad person. She's a
Yeah,
bad mom. I don't want her on my kid. She's a bad influence. But I feel like just being me is unacceptable. And who makes these rules? Like, I don't even know who makes these rules. I don't even know like what other people's standards are. There is no standard. But sometimes people get so, whatever the standard is, I always just feel like I'm not good enough.
yeah, I
Is I
understand
guess
that.
the point I'm trying to make. And it's not like, oh, like society shouldn't be like whatever, society has standard. Like it's not the point. I think if I am myself, people will reject me
Yeah,
because it's not acceptable for a mom to be like me.
I think there's like this persona of what has been portrayed of what moms should be,
And
but
it's such a
I
prude.
feel yeah, and it's dumb really because I feel like a lot of us moms could actually relate if we were real with
Mm-hmm.
each other instead of putting up a front. And I get that. Like I've had an extremely hard time making friends since I moved out of California. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've maybe had maybe one or two friends, and they're just like because my husband had coworkers he became friends with, and they had
Like
wives.
through work and
Yeah, but it wasn't like legitimate relationships that I like was able to build on my own. And even
mm-hmm.
then, yeah, I felt like I couldn't be myself. I didn't know how to act um in a certain way that wouldn't make them like feel off put by me.
Yeah, like what if they get offended? What if they just like instantly decide they hate me because I'm like too much? By too much, I mean like unacceptable. Like to, and I switched jobs. I didn't switch jobs. I work in the same job. I moved locations, and my old coworkers, I felt like they knew me and we were really cool. And now these new coworkers, I'm like, I'm the only one who cusses.
Mm.
I'm the only one who cusses. Like, and I feel like if I'm myself, I just feel like they just are gonna judge me. And it's not. I guess it's not even a. Maybe it's just a me problem. Maybe I just have a problem with being real. I'm too afraid that people are gonna reject me. But with moms, it's like, it's not even a question. I just know, like, I don't fit in with moms. I just feel like I don't.
Right. Like you were mentioning the other day about the feeling of, well, like seeing things on Instagram where they
I
talk
was gonna
about
get there.
where they
I
talk
was gonna
about
get there.
missing their baby being a child, like a baby, and
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. And you're saying that you don't have those certain kind of
No.
sentimental feelings, right?
Basically, anytime you read a post, like, and I was like I'm like, let me just look this shit up. And like, I can like find like 10 right now. Like any sentimental quote that you find that's like either related to mother, daughter, or related to like, oh, it's so hard, but my kids are the best. Like anything you can think of that fits that criteria. I read it and I'm just like deadpan, like cringe so hard. I'm cringing so hard because I can't relate to it. I don't feel that way. I feel like I feel like anytime that I read a quote that's like a mom quote, like I feel like a piece of my heart, like my heart is dead or something. Like that part of me is dead. I don't feel anything. I feel like it's like frozen. And I don't really know why. I remember when my kids were really little, and I have a couple of theories. Like I remember my boys were first born, and I would walk into they were born early, and I'd walk into the NICU, and they had this sign because you'd have to walk through maternity ward, and you have to go down an elevator and go down the hall. And before you went down the elevator, there was this picture, and it was like the golden hour, first hour you spent with your child, the best moment of any mother's life. And my children were ripped away from me their first hour of their life, and I didn't get to touch them because
Yeah.
they couldn't breathe. And then they took them away and they put me upstairs and I didn't get to see them for 12 hours. And I remember looking at that sign every day and crying and being like, I don't know what that's like. And it was just the golden hour. That's what it's called, apparently. I don't know. That's not even a real thing people talk about, but that's what this stupid poster said, that every mother that went to the NICU had to look at that fucking poster on their way down to the NICU. What the fuck is wrong with you guys? But anyway, like we didn't get that. I didn't even hold Edmund until he was 3 days old. I got to hold Dante when he was 1 day old, but I didn't get to hold Edmund until he was 3 days old because he wasn't breathing. So they had to put him on a machine. Like I couldn't even touch him. And like I remember just that was so soul crushing. And I really wanted to have another kid just so I could have that experience. And then I had another kid and she was born on her due date and it was perfect. And then I still didn't understand where these people are coming from. I still don't get it. And I started wondering like what the fuck is wrong with me? And I think it's just because I didn't feel that way with my own mom. And like
Yeah.
when you have like that traumatic relationship with your own mother, like it's like half of the relationship is just missing. I can love my kids as much as I want, but I'll never relate that back to motherhood. I won't associate that with motherhood because I don't associate it with my own mother.
Right, because you were never
So,
taught that. Like it was
yeah,
never a standard for you.
exactly. And like I know there's a lot of people out there with mom trauma,
Yeah.
but we're not represented in like society.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why we're here to talk about stuff like this. Like you can't be the only person out there that feels this way, right?
That's
I
like
mean,
really hard to talk about.
there,
But
there has
no.
there has to be other moms, and I think that plays along a lot with the how moms differ and
Mhm.
the isolation that it brings when you don't feel the same as other mothers do, you
Right?
know?
Like you're supposed to just be like, this child's my whole world. And I just, I don't know. Like I don't relate with that. And then I think people are going to be like, because you don't relate with that, you're just a bad mom. You don't love your kids. And that's
That's not the case at
deeply
all.
hurtful.
Yeah.
That's deep. And I don't want to make it out like I'm okay. Like me and my mom are cool now. We're just not close. We're like acquaintances. And she's a great grandma. She's a great grandma. But our relationship is, I am glad my kids have a relationship with her, but me and her are just always going to be what we are.
Yeah.
You can't undo the past, you know? You can only move forward. So,
Yeah. You can forgive, but
yeah.
sometimes it's hard to forget, you know?
Yeah. It's so hard it's hard. Like, I just feel so like people are gonna think I'm a bad person because if you're like, I don't love my mom. People are like, who doesn't love their mom? Like, but
And it's not that you don't love your mom.
No, it's not. I love my mom.
You love your mom. It's just you don't have that same relationship.
Like any sentiment or maternal daughter relationship with her. She's just a person. And like, I feel like if people say that about their dad, it's so much more societally acceptable to have a bad relationship with your dad.
Yeah.
But if you have a bad relationship with your mom, it's like, who doesn't love their mom? It's like, fuck, man. It's not my fault. I didn't do this. I was the child.
Yeah. I mean, it's equally the same thing. Like, some moms are just not there, just like some dads are not there, you know?
And people have reasons like for doing things. It's like sometimes life just sometimes situations suck. Like, I don't want to make it out like my mom's like a monster or something crazy, but we didn't have a good relationship, and it is what it is. I'm not trying to like throw her under the bus, you know what I mean? But that's life. What are you gonna do? I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying not to repeat the cycle, right? And it's really hard. I don't have a fucking example to look up to, and my own husband doesn't even have. His mom was kind of the same way, so we're just like, what are parents?
Yeah. And that's where the generational like trauma kind of comes into play, and like we have the ability to try to put an end to that and make changes because we acknowledge that it's a thing. It's a good thing that we acknowledge these emotions, you know, and how we feel, so that we can make changes and hopefully not pass these things
out there
done to our children. Yeah.
Right. There has to be other people who like
understand. Oh no. For sure.
There has to be other people who look at a mother-daughter quote and just like want to die. Like want to just like there's just nothing there. Like you read it and you're like, I tried to dye my mom a birthday card, and trying to find her a birthday card that I'm like doesn't feel like I'm being a fake liar is super hard without buying a birthday card that just feels like way too generic. I have to like, there's not a lot of birthday cards for moms and daughters who don't have a good relationship. It's a fine line between lying and being fake and just being a jerk.
Yeah. So that brings us on to our next topic.
The other side of the coin, which actually is also related, is perfectionism.
Yeah, the toxicity of unrealistic standards for moms, which I feel like it's a big thing. There's so many things out there that we see. For instance, having your child wear the cute clothes, the perfect outfits, the perfectly braided hair.
And I love braiding. Like, you know, okay, I love to braid. I wanted a girl so I could braid her hair, but like, who has time to braid their hair on a weekday?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to find the time to be
that mom. Let's call it that mom. That's what we're calling it.
Perfect mom that society calls for us to be.
Sometimes I realize
it's unrealistic.
I haven't trimmed my kids' nails in like 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh my god, your nails look like they're like torn and cracking, and it's like you if you were to show it on TV, I'm gonna cut them. And then I realized I didn't brush their hair, and then I realized their face is dirty, and I'm like,
they got Cheeto dust on their fingers.
I don't have time to wash my kids' faces. How do you guys have time to make your kids wear like coordinated outfits and do their braids? And what am I missing? Like,
I mean, in reality, it all comes down to the different lifestyles that we have. You know, a lot of moms are stay-at-home moms. A lot of moms are part-time moms.
A lot, but like, yeah, a lot of part-times. Yeah, I didn't choose this life. Like, I didn't want this life, and that's what makes it so hard.
We work 9 to 5. The majority of our time, somebody else is watching our children.
Yeah,
the
and they're
majority
doing
of
the
our
things
time.
that I want to do, but I have to be at stupid work.
We have to make the money and we have to support our children at the end of the day.
I
But
know. Hard.
it's hard, you know. And another thing that comes along with that is like, you know, being the parent that goes all out at school for like
Mhm.
birthdays. They have the little party bags and the goodies and
My kids bring home goodie bags from their friends' birthdays at school, and I'm like, I can barely get to the store and buy cupcakes. I'll have you know, if I were allowed to make cupcakes, because they don't let you do that anymore after COVID,
yeah.
I would make the cupcakes because we all want to prove a point, okay? And that's a point I can prove. I can make
Yeah.
some cupcakes. I'm like, I just don't have the money for the goodie bags, and I don't have the patience, and it's just a lot. And then I don't know. It's just a lot. And then they go and volunteer like at the kindergarten. And I'm like, I would love to go volunteer, but I literally cannot. Like
Yeah.
I can't take off work. I can't. My job doesn't allow it. And it
Yeah, like
sucks.
I work for a company that only allows 2 people off in a day. So can you imagine there's 17 people that work in this department, all women mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and only
That
2 are allowed. The ones with the most seniority are allowed to be off a day. And the majority of those people are moms that need to
didn't
be.
you like have to call in sick for Alina's basketball game last year, or was it her play?
I don't know, I've called in sick for a lot
You
of
called in
things.
sick for like her to go to her play. You
Yeah,
could
right. I can either take the time off or I'm going to call in sick. Luckily, I'm grateful that I have a manager that's understanding and she was like, yeah, you know, you just take the time. I'm just going to approve it. But it just doesn't make any sense.
it's 1 hour.
It's 1 hour. Yeah. Like
Not even
another
like
thing.
that. Like it's like we can't even do these basic things. Like I can't go to my kids' back to school night. I can't go to my kids' fucking game. And on top of that, like you see all these other moms who are just so perfect. And it's like I can't even go to my kids' back to school night. Like, how am I ever gonna be able to live up to someone who's there every day, doing all the extra, going the extra mile, making my kids' Halloween costumes, making the cupcakes for their birthday, going all fucking out. Like, I can't even be there. And then it just makes you feel awful. It makes you feel like
Mhm.
people are looking down on you or people are comparing you. And I think like that perfectionism, that level of perfection, it's not realistic.
It's not. I mean, there's got to be something going on, you know, if it's not one thing, it's the other. Is
And then that
what
turns
I
us
always
against
think.
each other. It makes us think like, oh, that person's a liar because I mean they probably are. But that's the way that society puts us against each other, man.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with social media and how it like paints unrealistic standards for moms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we have these moms on there, you know, doing their daily mom blogs and putting all this content on there that makes it seem like they have these perfect lives,
Acting
you
like
know,
it's
but
normal to clean your bathroom every day.
it's not.
Right?
It's not, the
That's not
majority of
normal.
it is not real, you know, and it just, I feel that we look at that stuff and then we compare ourselves to it, and it's just like this never ending cycle.
I can see it. I can see myself wanting to go down that path. And I'm just like, why do I have this desire? Like, I don't know. Like, do you relate with that?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I felt, I mean, my mom was kind of the same way,
Extra?
a little extra
A little
with
extra.
everything. She still is a little bit, where to the
You
point
looked
where
like
it's
a
like,
princess when you were a kid. She used to dress you like a princess.
yeah, she did. She went all out on my outfits. She perfectly curls my hair. I had the cutest shoes, you know, like everything about me was perfect going to school. But then again, there were certain things that she didn't do.
Mm-hmm. It's like we're
For instance,
dolls.
yeah, like I was her little doll. Like I looked perfect going to school, but then again, she couldn't be there for like I think it was more of a language barrier thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like she didn't go to any of my field trips. She didn't participate in anything that was school related because I felt like she had like this language barrier.
She struggled with
Or
English.
yeah. So that's one thing. It was like she never did any of that. And like I feel like I kind of don't want to do kind of the same thing. Yeah. I don't know. My mom was always like on top of her shit though at home. Like she had her dinner done by 4 o'clock, ready to go. She made my dad's lunches for to take to work. Um we
Like,
were
I
always
want to do that so badly.
we were always perfectly
But
dressed. Uh the house was spotless at all times.
at
Our
all
laundry
times.
was done, put away. Like everything that you can think of that like housewives a mom should do, like she did. So, and I feel like that's my thing. Like I strive to be that. I strive to like be a perfectionist when it comes to my household thing. I want my house to be a freaking Airbnb, at all times. I want it to be perfect. I want it to look nice. I want it to be clean.
Jay, you're a freaking Joanna Gaines. Like, this girl is literally a Joanna Gaines. You have no idea. That is the truth. That is a true statement. So I want that too. I also just want to not care though. And it's a very conflicting personality trait because because I saw my mom destroy herself, so I hate it. But I also want to do it better than her to prove a point.
Yeah.
It's very toxic, I think is my point. It's very toxic, and I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what acceptable is, and I feel like people probably just think I'm fucked up no matter what I do. So yeah.
I don't think so. I hope that us talking about stuff like this, we can find a person or two that that can relate.
One person out there. Yes.
And at the end of the day, every mom is different. We've all had different upbringings, dealt with different struggles in motherhood.
Yeah. Come from different places. We all have different issues. Like my issues are not other people's issues. Other people have different issues.
Yeah.
Like my hangups are personal, whatever, but it doesn't mean no one else has them.
And it doesn't it does not make you a bad mom. You're a great mom. You do everything that you can for your children. You love them. You care for them. You make sure that they're involved in sports. You keep them entertained. They have food on the table. You work hard and strive to give them a better living. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day. We're here and we are trying our best.
We do the best we can. And we are all just one generation better than the next. And I think it's so easy to judge people for being awful. But when I think about it, when I think about where my mom came from and the things she grew up with, she's one generation better than her parents. And it wasn't their fault either because she tells me where they came from. And I know they were one generation better than their parents. And it's like we're on this journey, this generational journey. All of us are, because you could say the same thing. Like your parents came from where they came from.
Oh, yeah.
And their parents came from where they came from. And we're all just...
I've heard some horror stories about my grandfather like tying up his daughters and beating them. Like, that shit is just crazy insane.
Yeah, that was normal back then.
Back then, yeah, when in the 50s, 60s, like
50s and 60s, everybody beat their fucking kids.
It was
like,
okay to beat your children.
Sounds like.
And it's just like,
I wasn't there, but that's what I've heard.
Can you imagine having to like grow up and like outlive that trauma and try to be a parent yourself where you don't like...
Yeah, they do the best they can. We do the best we can.
Yeah.
We're all on we all start from a different place, and I'm not saying it's okay to abuse your kids, obviously, like, no. But like, we all start from a different place and we all have a different understanding of these things, and we should maybe not judge each other so harshly for
Mhm.
not being in the same place as someone else. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for abuse. I'm just saying we all come from what we come from, and we all start at a different place, and we all have to grow from that place. And people who don't grow up in that environment, they've got, honestly, like, they're starting from like ahead. They're starting emotionally and like they're starting ahead. And that's great. Good for you.
It's like
I'm happy for you.
It's like the generational wealth kind of thing. Like, you know,
It really is. It's like the same concept.
Like when you come from generational wealth, you don't have to see all the struggles. You know, life's good. You fucking inherited some properties and you got some fucking generational money you can dig into. Some of us don't have that shit.
Personally. It says nothing about you personally, but the truth is, yeah, some of us don't have that shit. It doesn't mean we're bad people. It just means we have a lot of growth to do before we can even get to your square one.
I love that meme online where it's like, I wish my family would have gave me generational wealth instead of generational trauma.
God, but they're hand in
hand. Or generational mental health. Like,
they're hand in hand, because generational trauma is usually from generational property. Like, let's just be real right now. Like, was your family rich? No. Was my family
not
rich?
At all.
Absolutely fucking not. Like, they were not. Okay. Like, I am definitely, I'm not the best off person in my family, but the generation is. Like, of my siblings, I'm not doing the best, but as a generation, we're doing so much better than the generations before us. And like, I'm doing better than many generations before me, even though I'm like not doing as well as some of my other siblings are. So it's like, we're taking one step at a time, and they are related. Generational trauma and generational wealth, like, they are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying rich people aren't traumatized, because sometimes they are.
Oh, like, yeah.
Absolutely. But they can intersect at times. Like, just because you're rich doesn't mean your family doesn't suck. Like, because you can be rich and maybe your family just, like, your parent was just like, you know, they fucked up. Like, that happens.
Right. Be rich, but emotionally and mentally you're poor.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily equal happiness, but a lot of times I think they are correlated, more often than not. Meh. Now we've divulged way too much. Can we just be nice to each other as moms and maybe like not, let's just try not to be so judgy. And I know that sounds like I'm being a bitch, but I don't think I'm the bitch in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I feel terrible when I follow like these moms on Instagram or
Facebook
or whatever, and they post, you go on there to post and be yourself and have like this platform where you can, you know, share how you feel, and you know, and then there's moms in there that go in there and just completely
they just want to
destroy you. Yeah, and it's like, why? Why
like,
would you do that?
A fucking post the other day where it's like, I'm gonna tell the story. There's the 50s mom and the 50s daughter, and they're like, Mommy, why don't you go online and talk shit about me and talk about drinking wine? And the mom was like, because I respect my body and I love you and I know that that's toxic, and wine mom culture is just toxic. And I'm like, bitch, that's not why. It's because you get off on feeling like you're better than other people. Like, let's be real. The answer is, honey, because instead of getting my kicks by relating to people and having honest, like, genuine interactions, I make myself feel better by acting like I'm better than everyone else. That's what she was really saying. Like,
and they suppress all these emotions.
Better than me? Get the fuck over yourself. But you can't, because you can't thumbs down on Facebook. And I'm not going to comment because I'm not stupid. I'm not going to fucking add to the algorithm. Fuck you, Facebook. Jim, my husband told me that I should just put a thumbs down in the comments. And I was like, that's hella funny. But then I'm still technically commenting, but I think it's really funny. And I think I might start doing that. Oh, God. Why?
Just start posting like the little like faces, like the little faces that have different emotions to them.
Just the thumbs
down.
Roll
eye, like rolling your eye, if I can.
Just a generic thumbs down.
Or that, yes.
Straight up thumbs down. Thumbs down it. You're a bad person. I don't know. Like I wanted to, but I was on our Whiny Moms Instagram and I didn't want to go off and like cause problems for our own. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, we are again here to be a judgment-free zone.
Judgment-free zone.
For sure. Every mom is different. We all come from different paths. We all have different ways to raise our children. Like,
Different philosophies.
Let's not hurt each other in the process. Like, what's the point? Let's bring each other up.
Let's have an open conversation.
Yeah, let's talk about things.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
We could be wrong. We could be totally wrong.
I'm open-minded. I'm wrong about a lot.
Does that mean that you need to shame me? Absolutely not.
Doing the best I can.
Yeah. So, thank you again, Whiny Moms, for joining us today. Anything else you want to say?
No.
No.
No. I'm good. You want to close this out?
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today on our second episode. Again, bear with us as we try to make this a thing for you guys. We are on YouTube. Please subscribe. We are on Instagram and on TikTok. Please follow.
And Facebook. You don't have to follow there. Facebook sucks. We're just, I mean, if you want, I'm sorry. If you want to, you can, obviously. That's why we're there.
We don't mean it, Facebook.
I do mean it. Come for me, algorithm.
Other than that, we love you guys. Thank you for listening and for joining us. And I hope that you stay with us along this run.
Bye. Like and subscribe.
Bye.